In the car, I thought she was asleep and ran outside to play by myself. At dinner that night, my parents asked where my sister was. That's when I remember, and frantically led them to open the door. Opening the door, I was shocked to discover only a puddle of water remained in the backseat. My sister was gone. At the age of 18, my parents committed suicide one after another. Yet the police excitedly asked me, what on earth happened that afternoon when your sister went missing? June 10, 2025. In front of Officer Lai, who was in charge of the case, I broke down for the first time, and tears welled up. At that moment, I hadn't yet recovered from the blow of losing both my parents. But Officer Lai looked at me urgently, as if a belly full of questions awaited my answers. Did you know that ever since your sister went missing, your parents have spent all these years taking antidepressant medication? I raised my head in surprise. How could that be? Officer Lai stared intently at me. All these years, you grew up in an environment where both parents suffered from depression, and you really had no idea at all? And observing the whole time, they were always good to me, and I never noticed anything unusual. Fine. Let's put that aside for now. I currently believe the reason your parents died by suicide from depression is precisely what happened when your sister went missing 13 years ago. But this is also what I find strangest. Your parents spent all these years worrying themselves into depression. Why did they never look for her? Back then, they didn't even file a missing person report. Yet 13 years later, they chose to commit suicide at this exact time. Perhaps their suicide had nothing to do with my sister. Our family's financial situation has always been unstable. The reason I am certain this is connected to what happened 13 years ago is partly due to your parents' medical records over the years, and partly because when your mother committed suicide, she was clutching this item. She pulled it out from under the table. My eyes widened. It was a light blue children's mug made of stainless steel with a hole broken in the bottom. I remember this was the cup my sister used for meals back then. It vanished along with my sister that year. So how could it be here now? Officer Lai looked at me with a solemn expression. Is it possible your sister is still alive? And your parents found out, which is why they bore such psychological pressure and ultimately took a drastic measure? Finished speaking, Officer Lai patted my shoulders that were trembling from tears and asked earnestly, what on earth happened that afternoon 13 years ago? That year I was 5 and my sister was 3. Her name was Suzanne. I will always remember. It was the afternoon of June 12, 2012. The weather that year was unusually severe. Kindergarten started summer break early. Both my parents had jobs back then, so my mom could only come back during lunch break to cook for us and then go back to work. I remember every time she left, she would admonish me. Watch your sister. Don't run outside to play. But at 5 years old, kids just want to play. Yet I still held back. After all, my parents had given instructions. That day after mom left, my sister played alone in the room while I lay on the living room mat blowing the electric fan and drifted off to sleep drowsily. The living room TV was turned off. The house was stiflingly quiet, and you could only hear the sound of the fan blades turning along with the sweltering heat. For 13 years, memories of that afternoon became blurred and horrifying because of my sister's disappearance. I remember I was sleeping soundly at the time, and amidst half sleep and half wakefulness, I heard the sound of the television. I opened my eyes and saw the TV parts, the remote control left on the coffee table, and some other debris scattered all over the floor. Sister must have been making a mess again. I climbed up, picked up the items from the floor one by one, and shouted toward the room. Zan, didn't I tell you not to throw things out everywhere? Usually when I spoke to her like that, she would suddenly run out to look at me and reply, but this time after I shouted, there was no movement from the room at all. That was when I realized the living room door was left ajar. Zan had run outside. My mind went completely blank. I frantically ran out the door. Our family's car was parked right at the entrance. A second-hand car my dad bought the day before yesterday. Opening the door, a wave of heat surged up. Blazing sunlight beat down on my body, and at a glance I saw my sister. She was sitting in the back seat. I yelled, "Who told you to come out? Get back inside quickly." And her subsequent actions, to this very day, I have never been able to forget. Seeing me walk toward her, my sister curled her body into a ball, stared at me, and said a sentence out of breath. What that exact sentence was, I don't remember very clearly anymore, but upon hearing those words, every time they echoed, they left a deep impression on me. At the time, I was a bit angry, telling her to hurry home right now, or else I'd lock her inside the car. As I spoke, I reached out to close the backseat door. I only meant to scare her, but I didn't expect that as I pushed the door, it actually latched shut under the momentum. I hurriedly pulled the door handle, but it wouldn't open no matter what. I told my sister inside to push, but that didn't open it either. I tried for a good while, sweating all over and shouting. Helpless, I could only tell my sister to wait for a moment, while I went to call the adults. This also became the last time I ever saw her. I remember not running far, before I ran into that group of kids at the village square. At that moment, my worry about leaving my sister locked in the car vanished completely. Speaking up to here, my remorse was overwhelming, but Officer Lai listened very carefully. He stared at me and asked, and then? Later at dinner time, when I returned home, Mom asked me where my sister was. That was when I suddenly remembered. My sister was still locked in the car. My mom let out a scream and dragging me, scrambled from the living room to the door. She hysterically shouted for Dad to hurry up and bring the keys. She grabbed the keys and opened the door. The moment Dad opened the door, a stifling and scorching hot air rushed into our faces. After a while, I heard him murmur in a low voice, "Dude." And it's the afternoon. The temperature inside the car can reach 50 or 60 degrees, with oxygen deprivation and high heat. Even an adult wouldn't last long. I constantly scratched my head, my teeth clicking together, and observing the whole time, no matter what happened to my sister afterward, that afternoon had already committed an irreversible mistake. No wonder your parents didn't call the police back then. Officer Lai put down his notepad, and his gaze lighted on me again. This time I felt a hint of suspicion, mixed in his eyes. Why Minghao? You were only 5 years old at the time. After so much time has passed, are your actions on that afternoon really how you describe them? On a scorching hot day, you locked your sister in the car, and then left her there, to go play without caring. Even if you were a 5-year-old child, that is still a pretty terrifying behavior, right? Yet the oblivious you, just let it happen. Then tell me, at what age did you begin to realize that on that afternoon, your sister in such an environment would be baked to death? You can't answer, because you were already capable of realizing it back then. The fact that you later thought of calling parents for help also proves this point. In such a crisis moment, you would cast your sister completely to the back of your mind and act as if nothing happened, just to go play? I couldn't refute it. All these years I also couldn't forgive myself for forgetting my sister like that back then. She continued, "From this, I thought of 2 possibilities. The first one, you lied to me. At the time, you clearly knew your sister was in danger, yet you let it happen." I clenched my fists and interrupted her. "I did it. For these past 13 years, there hasn't been a single day I haven't regretted what I did back then. I'm certainly willing to believe you. The second possibility. Your memory dropped a certain link, and it was precisely this link that led to the tragedy. From the moment you went out to call for help to when you forgot the danger your sister was in. What happened during that middle period? Or who did you run into? I shook my head. I only remember that shortly after running out, I ran into a childhood playmate. Do you remember who you ran into first? I looked out the window and carefully recalled it. At the time, I was frantically running toward the alley entrance. That alley was very long, and the sunlight poured straight down from overhead, glowing so brightly I couldn't keep my eyes open. I originally thought there was nobody on either side of the alley. But before running to the corner, I saw someone standing there, in the shadow of the eaves. Who was it? An older girl living right across from our house named Liu Ying. She seemed to be 2 years older than me. Her family also had another older sister named Liu Yu, who had already graduated from elementary school back then. And then, I left with them. As I spoke, my pupils dilated. Officer Lai looked solemn. You've noticed it too, haven't you? This is where a huge problem lies. According to common sense, the first thing you would say when seeing them must be telling them that your sister was locked in the car. A 7-year-old child would easily grasp the severity of the situation. I remember telling her my sister was locked in the car and asking her to help me. And what about her? What did she do? I tried hard to recall the scene back then. As her face became increasingly clear, a chill crept up my spine. The memories I had always ignored also slowly took shape. I remember now. She walked out of the shadows, took my hand, and said she would take me to find big toys. But I remember being pulled by her the whole time, running and running, only to find she had brought me to the village square. There were only a bunch of kids playing there. At the time, I shook off her hand and asked her what to do about my sister. She grabbed my hand again, saying my sister would be fine, and let her have a good sleep inside. Once she wakes up, we'll go help her out. At first, I was still a bit uneasy, but as we kept playing, I completely forgot about my sister. Speaking up to here, a chill of lingering fear instantly engulfed my entire body. After the accident happened to my sister, these past years I countless times interrogated myself in my heart, always attributing the cause to my own childish ignorance and love for play. But I completely forgot what that older girl had done back then. Officer Lai in front of me frowned. If your description is accurate, then what this young girl did is probably not as simple as just tricking you. What do you mean? You just said you hadn't even walked out of that alley by your front door when you ran into her. Ness, that alley is very long. And observing the whole time, at that time, she was standing right under her eaves, which means the spot where she stood could see the entire process of you sister being locked in the car, as well as your every move. Ness? Officer Lai tapped the table thoughtfully and said it. Is it possible she was standing there all along and observing the whole time? You mentioned from the very beginning that the car's door lock was broken and could only be opened with a key. Then whose key opened the door for your sister? And why did she go into the car? These were all things that happened while you were unaware. Liu Ying very likely knew, and might have even done something in the process. She deliberately harmed my sister. Did our two families have any grudge? No. Everyone is just ordinary neighbors. I remember their family opened a mahjong parlor, and my dad often went to play cards. Stakes among neighbors in the neighborhood weren't big, so there shouldn't have been any disputes. What about between the children of your two families? I didn't have much impression of Liu Ying. Her older sister Liu Yu played with us a bit more. Regardless, this Liu Ying definitely has a huge connection to your sister's disappearance 13 years ago. How about this? Today you go back and get some good rest first. We will contact this person Liu Ying and ask her to come over for a few questions, and we will have you join us then. Thank you, Officer Lai. When I left the police station and returned home, it was already completely dark. The house had been searched through by the police and looked very messy. I casually ate something on the way, and upon returning, lay down on the bed. Every corner of the house choked me up, plunging me into endless sorrow. I don't know how much time passed, but I slowly drifted off to sleep. In my dream, I saw that car again. The car my dad sold after my sister went out. In the dim light, I shone my flashlight over. Suddenly, a pair of pale, tiny hands reached out from inside the car window and grabbed me ever tightly. I violently woke up from my sleep. My back was already soaked in sweat. Picking up my phone, it was already past 2 in the morning, drenched in sweat. Grabbed my phone, past 2 a.m., still haunted by the dream. Why, after my sister vanished, did my parents not pursue the investigation and instead quickly sell the car? But at the same time, goosebumps covered my entire body because I heard footsteps coming from inside the house. Terror made my whole body freeze up completely without moving. That sound seemed to come from my mother's bedroom. Someone was in my mother's bedroom. Overcoming my immense fear and trembling, I walked toward my mother's room. Reaching the doorway, I saw the scene before me and covered my mouth in shock. Under the pale moonlight, a figure